All right. Hey, Kurt. It's good to see you.
Yes, sir. Good to see you too, buddy.
Yeah, I'm not, as you can tell, I'm not at the International Space Station anymore. I'm in sunny, it looks like Hawaii.
Man gets around for only having one leg.
Yeah, that's right. I used to tell people I was busier than a one-legged man at a butt kicking contest.
Now you are.
Yeah. So, hey, last week, or the last time we met, we did John chapter 1. We got through verse 2.
Yeah, that's right.
45 minutes to do two verses. I think we're going to get a little bit further this time. But we're going to start with verse 3. But just as a recap, if you remember, we talked about in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And we talked about how the Word is a noun, then he takes it to a pronoun, gives it an assignment, he, and how uh, so whoever that he is, uh, and John's going to reveal that a little bit later. But you and I know, and our listeners know, that he is actually Jesus, that he was
Right.
with God when he created all things. And so the Word was with God, the Word was God, and the Word is he. And so we're going to pick up in verses 3 through 5. So if any of our listeners would like to get their Bibles out, if not, they can just listen. Uh, but verse 3 through 5 says, through him all things were made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. A couple of bullet points that I have, and you can add to that or you can expound on it better than me, was, of course, him being the word, logos, as we talked about last time, and all things were made. And I think about this. You look out in space, and our telescopes and our satellites that we have sent out into space are now capturing images that before we had never been able to see. Uh, black holes, all of this beautiful.
Innumerable galaxies. We thought we were in, the one galaxy, and then we find out that there's hundreds, if not millions, of galaxies out there. Yeah.
And even ours is one of the smaller ones.
Yeah.
Um, and you look at the images that we get, like from Jupiter or Saturn, and you can see the the ring, which is a bunch of
Uh-huh.
moons and
And debris and rocks and
right.
gas. Yeah, yeah.
And then you go to something that's incredibly small. Years ago, when I was high school science, I believe it was biology or something, our teacher talked about a leaf and showed a picture of a leaf, and it has a one main vein, and it has these little arteries, or one main
Mhm.
artery, and these veins that come out that feed the leaf through chlorophyll, and it's basically, he called it a vascular plant,
Right.
and it pumps life from the leaf to the plant, and the plant feeds the animals, it feeds us. But you take it to the smallest cells that we're now discovering with newer technology and
Sure.
telescopes and microscopes, and how we're able to, I'm sure you've heard, what was his name, Louis
Giglio.
Giglio, talk about
Yeah.
laminin, the
Yeah.
smallest
Laminin. Yeah.
particle. um, and I think that he created that, you know in his mind, in God's incredible mind, uh, from laminin to galaxies. It's
Sure.
just incredible what he
Sure.
created.
The idea in God's mind, and then the vocalization of it through the word, it becomes. And
Exactly.
that's it's amazing.
Yeah.
I've often thought about how wonderfully brilliant and, you know, creative God's mind must be.
Right.
Let there be let there be a beaver, and
Yeah.
here comes this beaver waddling around. Okay, I want to make a duck-billed platypus. So we're going to take the eyes off of the face and put it on the tail and turn it around backwards. And now you got a platypus, you know. So just this amazing creativity that God had to think of what he wanted, and then this logos that we're hearing about in John was how he enacted it. You know, that's how that he spoke it. So he thought it, and then he enacted it, and it
Right.
became really cool.
It is, yeah. I mean, you know, we can't do that. We can build and create with what he's already provided. And I'm sorry, I've had bronchitis and sinus infection. So, um, you know, so these things that we cannot see to what we can see, God has put together and God has created. And it's just amazing. And then the second thing I thought of, uh, the word was life. The one not who was not created created,
Mm-hmm.
um, and uh, and contains life. And therefore, the uncreated life gives life to everything created. But you know, if you want to get specific, since God, the Word, and the Holy Spirit, and all these things, you know, and you look at a leaf, it's just amazing to me that the Creator, who was not created, that has always existed, has given life, contains life. And that's what he says, in him was life. And you and I exist, you and I breathe, you and I uh, have this life within us from the life giver. And then the third thing was, not only is there life, but there's light.
Sure.
John says that it shines, but the darkness has not overtaken it. Or a better translation that I've been able to dig up was, "Is not understood it." And have you really thought about that? That why is it worded that way? The giver of life, the light himself, the creation doesn't understand that light. What does that mean to you?
Well, so first off, I need to back up to answer that question.
Okay.
So as John is revealing the qualities of logos, so that's
Mhm.
so you got logos introduced in 1 and 2, and then 3 through 5 you start seeing the qualities about logos. And one of the first thing that he addresses is he talks about life, then he talks about light. In that, in the using in the giving of the term life, or using the word life, he's also using it as an identifier of the personhood of Jesus. And here's what I mean by that. So I love Greek language because it's so rich. There's like 400 words to describe pepperoni. So you know, we have one word to say pepperoni. You know, they got 9,000. So there are three Greek words for life. There's bios, which we understand is biology, and that's the entirety of life. That's the that's the extended or extensive view of life. That's from birth or even preconception all the way through death. That's bios. And then there's psyche, and psyche either has to do with the soul, that inward core being of life, or even breath of that life. So the breath that thing breathes. And then the other is Zoe, and Zoe is whereas bios is like this extensive look at life. Zoe is is an intensive view of life, as in present, here, now, all being. So this life, this quality of life that Logos has, is not something that was and then disappeared. It's not something that will be and it'll only be then. Again, it goes back to that I am that we talked
Right.
about, in verses 1 and 2. It goes back to that that I am identifier of Jesus is God. So John actually uses the word Zoe here.
Okay.
And that is the intensive present, right here, right now, presently, I am alive, uh,
Amazing.
which is really cool to me.
Mhm.
And I don't know, you're not going, you're not any less saved if you don't know that, but I just think it's interesting, getting into the studying of these guys that wrote this stuff, understanding understanding the implications of the time frame that they wrote in and the language that they use. I think it just makes our faith even more rich and more full when we see those little things like Zoe, presently, right now, I am the Logos, I am the life. Life.
Mhm.
And so what does even Jesus say, John 14, 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I
Life.
am that life. Just really cool to
Yeah.
me. So with that being said,
Okay.
why do what is my thought on creation rejecting or not recognizing? I guess they do in some cases reject, but in many cases it's just a lack of recognition of who Jesus is. So again, going to the Greek in there, so Jesus is life, he's Zoe, and then John says in him was life, and the life was the light. The light there is the word phos. And the word phos is used 77 times in the New Testament, 72 times in the New Testament. 33 of those uses are in the book of John.
Mm.
No other gospel writer uses the word phos to describe Jesus.
No kidding.
Matthew and Luke quote two Old Testament prophecies about light, but not John, Mark, or Matthew, Mark, Luke. None of them use the word light to describe who Jesus is. John
Mm.
exclusively uses that to describe Logos.
Amen. Wow.
And so here you've got this word phos. Um, when Jesus said, or I'm sorry, I'm telling the end of the story. When Logos comes into the world, it says the life was the light of men, and it says the phos shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. So the reality of light is, if I turn a light on in a room, I can see clearly everything in the room, right? And I can
Right.
make choices based on the knowledge I have of this room. Oh, don't step on the toy. Don't step on the Lego. You know,
Yeah.
second worst pain that's ever been created in human life: stepping barefooted on a Lego. Um, if I turn the light on, then I have clarity of my surroundings, and I can make choices based on that knowledge.
Yeah.
If I don't have a light on, and so I mentioned Legos being the second worst. First worst is when I don't turn the light on and I get up in the middle of the night and I catch my pinky toe on the clothes basket, the little hole in the bottom of the clothes basket, and your pinky goes in that thing. That's the first worst pain in the world.
Yeah.
If I turn the light on, I can avoid that. So
Right.
the introduction of light into a room gives clarity, gives the ability to make wise decisions, all this kind of stuff. Jesus comes into this dark world and he turns on the light. And he instantly in him reveals the truth, gives clarity, gives wisdom. That's just his nature. That's the nature of Logos.
Mhm.
Um, the problem is, if we believe, and you and I do believe this, according to what we read in scripture, if we believe in free will, we believe that you have the option to accept the light as it
Right.
is, or to turn the light back off.
Okay.
And so um if I willfully, yeah, if I willfully see the truth in Jesus and I turn him off, I've made a choice to reject him, right?
Exactly. Right.
If I don't know who Jesus is, I mean, sin is still sin when you do things that God doesn't want you to do, but there's a level of culpability there. If I don't know what the truth is, if I don't know what the light is, I'm going to make stupid decisions. If I don't know that if I walk if I go visit your house, it's the first time I've been there and I don't know where the light switch is,
Yeah.
I'm going to stumble around for a little while until I find it out. You
Right.
see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so I don't know that all of the world rejects Jesus. I think people do make that obvious rejection of Christ, but I think in many parts people just don't know. It's ignorance
Okay.
that gets them into that place. So when I see this verse, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. I don't necessarily see 100% willful rejection of Jesus. I certainly see that,
Yeah.
but I also see that there is just the state of a fallen humanity without light is the stumbling.
Right.
It is the making the mistakes. And so um your question, why do I think that people reject the light or turn away from light? First off, they may not know about it. Secondly, they don't like what the light shows.
Okay. All right. Having said that, a friend of mine uh, was a security guard at Ashland Oil Refinery. He was one of several.
Uh-huh.
He was posted once up high on a side of a hill that overlooked Ashland Oil. He worked third shift. He was talking one time and he said it's amazing how beautiful Ashland Oil is at nighttime because what you see are the flames from the
Oh
stacks.
yeah.
That's
Oh
all
yeah. I
you can really see.
love driving by that place at night. Yeah.
Yeah. But he goes, when morning came and the sun came up, you saw what Ashland Oil Refinery really was. It was nasty, it was dirty, it was full of soot. So when the light exposed it, you saw it for what it really is. Now you have a choice. Do I like what I see, what the light has exposed, and am I going to make decisions based upon what the light has exposed to me, the
Mm-hmm.
path that I need to take, the things that I need to change or clean up or these things? Or
Sure.
am I going to switch a light off and pretend that everything's fine? And I think a lot
Yeah.
of people have that decision, and it's harder to make the decision to clean things up, to straighten
Oh,
things up, than it is to. It's easier to live in the dark.
well, let's just be honest. We like it.
Mm-hmm.
So, throughout scripture, so the word phos that John uses 33 times, the rest of the usage of the word phos are to describe basically good and evil.
Right,
If things are good, they're in the light. If
right,
things are bad, they're in the darkness. Heaven, Revelation, the new Jerusalem will be filled with the light of God's glory. So that we're clothed in righteousness means we have robes of white, that kind of thing. So light is associated with good, dark being associated with bad. Um, we like the darkness.
yeah,
We like sin. Um, I mean, I'm not glorifying it in any way or condoning it, but let's just be honest. We sin because we like it,
yeah,
and if there's something attractive to us in our sinful nature, I want to do that thing because of the way that it makes me feel.
exactly.
Um, I am choosing this thing because it feels good. Now, if sin were chocolate covered Brussels sprouts, not one person in the world would eat those things. Nobody would sin if, you know, a frozen broccoli sickle. Nobody would sin, but it's not.
Right,
I don't know what your food du jour is, but sin to me is like pork chops. They all look good. I
yeah,
want more of them,
yeah,
and and I do feel in that moment, even though it's momentary or not long lasting, I do feel good in that moment of sin. But then that leads to guilt and shame and all those good things. But my point is, I think we like the dark because we like sin. If and maybe that's something that people don't want to admit or don't want to consider, but when you willfully choose to sin, you have chosen darkness over light in that moment.
Right. And, you know, even as the writers of the New Testament and Jesus himself said, therefore, as children of light, you know, live in the light,
Yeah.
you know, that type of thing. And so I think we are, uh, when we are exposed to the light, um, we have a decision to make to live as
Mhm.
children of the light. Um, so in the next few minutes, he starts to talk about John, who, not the writer of this gospel, but as John the Baptist. He
Mhm.
starts to talk about John the Baptist. Oh, by the way, do you know what John the Baptist and Winnie the Pooh have in common?
They both like honey.
Same middle name.
Oh,
Okay. So anyway, that's for free. We won't charge anybody for that. So John the Baptist, yeah, they did like honey.
I like mine better.
Yeah. He says in verse 6, there was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all might believe. He himself was not the light, he only came as a witness to the light. What's amazing to me is God sends a man to be a witness or a warner of the coming light. Uh,
Sure.
he first, John the disciple or the apostle who wrote this gospel, um, wants to make clear that John the Baptist recognized, I'm not the light. I'm not going to take responsibility and tell everybody that, hey, you need to follow me because I'm all of that. He's saying, look, there's somebody who's going to come that's greater than me, that's bigger than me, that is the light. And so that's what I'm going to talk about is basically what the author of John is saying about John the Baptist. And in verse 9, he says, the true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. So the light is getting ready to expose himself, the surrounding of the world and the condition of the world. And, you know, a lot of people like to take responsibility about how good and fantastic they are. You know,
Mhm.
um, even in ministry, the spotlight, they want it on them and what
Mhm.
they're doing, what the church is doing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong. You know, our church on once a month on Mondays volunteers at the food bank. We take some video of it because we want to show that our good works, but not in a
Mhm.
prideful way. Um, it's a beautiful thing. You're feeding the community. Um, but I think what we've become good at is saying, this is for Jesus. We're able to do this because of who Jesus is. He's the true light. He's the true source of food. And so John is saying, I'm not the light, but I'm going to tell you about the light who's getting ready
Mhm.
to come. And
Everybody has a
bas
role to play. He was not the light. His job was to tell everybody to put your sunglasses on because it's getting ready to get bright around here.
yeah, yeah. And I think, you know, near John's death, when, you know, he's in prison and getting ready to lose his life, he asked the question, you know, we'll get to that, but, you know, he asked the question, are we supposed to be looking for you or is there someone else? I don't think John was in a moment of doubt, but I think John was in that moment like, hey, let's do something, hurry, you know.
He's getting ready to die. He just wants some verification.
Right,
Is what I'm doing and about to do, is it worth it? Are you the man? Yeah.
right.
Cool.
And so that question that I had was, um, you know, how can you not recognize the light when it comes? You know, it's because I think, briefly, real quick, because of the Garden Eden, when we sinned against God, he had to distance himself from us, but he always wanted to provide a way back to him. And and all through the Old Testament sacrifices, through the ultimate sacrifice of Jesus, he was always doing that. And so John is saying, hey, he's coming into the world. Uh,
Yep.
we got about a minute. Um, final thoughts on any of this?
Oh, I just think I think John getting us ready to unveil who the Logos is. I love looking at the qualities of who he is and the life and the light. You know, I just pray uh, that we would understand who Jesus was, and if we're supposed to be like him, that we would emulate those things in our life as well. So.
Well, I think we did good to get to verse 6 or verse 9. Next time we'll meet, we'll tackle verse 10 and following. But it's been a pleasure, and I appreciate you hanging out with us. And um, I mean, uh, this stuff lights my fire, and I appreciate you being the one that's helping me do it.
Good deal, man. Well, we'll see you guys next time.
All right,
God
brother.
bless you.
You hang in there.
All right, you too, bud.